Welcome to Foreside's Partner Spotlight. My name is Lori Weston. I'm a Managing Director at Foreside, and today we're speaking with Bluevoyant, Foreside's partner in cybersecurity services. In July of 2020, Foreside announced this partnership to offer cost-effective, tailor-made cybersecurity consulting and managed security solutions specifically designed to meet the needs of Foreside's registered investment advisor, broker-dealer, and asset manager clients. Today, we're speaking with Chris White, Bluevoyant's Chief Security Officer and Global Head of Client Solutions. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks so much, Lori. Happy to be here and excited to talk to folks.
Great. So why don't we start with you telling us a little bit more about Bluevoyant?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bluevoyant is not your traditional security company. We were founded relatively recently and still enjoy a little bit of startup status to some extent. And we were founded in a very unique way. So our leadership team is primarily composed of executives who've been responsible for cybersecurity from a board and a business owner perspective, primarily in financial services, but really a number of industries across the Fortune 100 space, as well as executives from the intelligence community in the U.S., but also a number of Western countries. And these folks got together because they realized that global cybersecurity threats, so advanced cyber criminals and other forms of cyber threats, were beginning more and more to strategically target organizations of all sizes in the private sector for a number of different reasons. They began an initiative to try and get the public and private sectors to work a little bit more closely together, but unfortunately, as folks may have guessed, there's quite a bit of bureaucracy in the public sector. And so the most efficient mechanism was to borrow from the expertise of the intelligence community and blend that with the expertise and the pragmatism of the private sector and create a new company, right? One that leveraged the tradecraft and the deep technical prowess of the intelligence community, but with a mind towards practicality and how to tailor those capabilities to still defend against the most sophisticated adversaries, but to do so in a way that's cost-effective no matter how small or how large the organization is. And that's how Bluevoyant was launched.
Great. Thanks, Chris. That's exactly what our clients need, right? They aren't necessarily Fortune 500 companies, but they still need cyber capabilities that those large firms need as well. Cyber protection, we all need it, right? And so this is why we partnered with you to deliver services, cybersecurity services to our clients. So let's get into why cybersecurity is important for financial services firms specifically. Why do investment advisors and broker-dealers have a unique threat against them because they're in the financial services space and work directly with retail clients?
Yeah. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, our folks had noticed that sophisticated threat actors were still targeting the Fortune 100 and the intelligence community organizations from a nation-state perspective, but were putting more and more effort and success towards attacking smaller organizations. And what they realized is that if you're the owner of a cybersecurity company, or a cybersecurity capability for a very large company, your weakest link is not inside your organization, but it's the ecosystem of smaller organizations that do business in your industry, with your vendors, maybe they're a vendor of you. And so what we've seen is that these threat actors have developed criminal organizations that understand the basic business principles of return on investment. And what they've seen is if you want to make a lot of money in cybercrime, you don't go after the largest organization. In the last 10 years, large organizations have made their own cyber defense very sophisticated, but what they're not able to control is smaller organizations in their industry who may do some form of business with them that they have explicit trust with, but who don't have the same cybersecurity controls that they as a large organization do. And so if you're going to be properly protected, there needs to be an advanced level of protection for all of the companies, no matter how small they are, that are within your industry. So I'll give you an example. we take a look at the automation that we enjoy so much and how we do business these days. Cybercriminal organizations have the same level of automation that we enjoy outside of the black market. They use that to go after many smaller organizations instead of attacking large organizations. And that's because these days it's now much more cost effective to do that at scale than it is to go after a larger organization. And the data actually supports this. When you look at what the most recent breach analysis say, it's that threat actors are almost exclusively motivated by financial gain. They're going after primarily financial organizations. They don't need any type of insider information or to leverage the employees who are part of an organization. They can be successful just by attacking an organization from the outside. And they're almost all associated with some form of sophisticated organized crime or advanced cyber criminal syndicate. So a few things that we've noticed and that we take away in terms of recommendations. Financial services has always been, and for the foreseeable future will always be, the number one target for cyber criminal organizations. And that's because they are in the business of making and managing money. And so the probability that a cyber criminal will get a return on their investment by attacking one of these organizations is much higher than in other industries that are more constrained from margin perspective. We're also seeing that geopolitical issues, including the current pandemic with COVID-19, serve as a phenomenal platform for these cyber criminals to use and abuse to be successful in their campaign. They've noticed that folks are using more and more digital platforms now with remote work and the emphasis on using technology to facilitate business. And they also know that folks are deeply interested in what's going on in the world, all of which they use to craft very, very targeted, very, very believable campaigns to masquerade as legitimate news sources, legitimate sources of information in order to conduct cybersecurity attacks. So it's no longer just the obvious phishing, that we've seen and experienced over the past several decades. Now it is websites that look completely legitimate, may even be legitimate, but are embedded with malicious content or linked to malicious content that as a user, you're never exposed to. But as you conduct your business and seemingly with no interruption, these cyber tools are operating behind the scenes to compromise the environment.
Chris, that is just, it's a scary thought, right? That you don't even realize that you might be, that a cyber criminal might be infiltrating your system and everything looks normal on your end. So with that, why don't we turn our direction to what Bluevoyant and Foreside did, what packages we've developed to specifically protect our financial services clients in the financial services firm with those threats in mind.
Sure. And when we thought about boutique, high-touch types of financial services organizations, broker-dealers, or registered investment advisors, we specifically thought of the way they conduct their business operation and the best way to package all the different cybersecurity capabilities you may need into two basic categories. The first is for those who have a very streamlined platform for running their business. It may just be computers. It may be laptops, call it between 5 and 10 laptops to support the employees of that organization, and then just a series of cloud services for things like email and file sharing. In that scenario, the main vector of attack is to go after the user using the device, and that's where you see malware and ransomware. For those types of clients, we designed CyberPro to provide 24/7 detection, response, and malicious activity on the endpoint, and to resolve those issues in a transparent way so the business can keep running. Now, for larger or for more complex organizations who have, perhaps a physical network or a collection of networks, they may have servers, they may have more complex types of cloud infrastructure or platforms that are part of how they run and deliver their businesses and value. For those organizations, we devised a more comprehensive service that still provides 24/7 monitoring and response and still provides the same outcomes from a stopping bad things when they happen on the endpoint perspective, but goes further and is able to collect important forms of data that may indicate compromise from both the perimeter, the firewall, the email inboxes, and other facets of the network to provide a more comprehensive view and protection for those organizations.
Great. So you've mentioned endpoints a number of times, and that's a relevant point to these different packages. Can you just go over what an endpoint is and what it's not so our clients understand?
Yeah, this is an important clarification from a nomenclature standpoint. So when we say endpoints, typically in the industry, we're talking about systems that run traditional operating systems like Windows, like the Mac OS, and various flavors of Linux from a server perspective. Now, these could be physical devices, laptops, for instance, or workstations if you're still using a desktop, or it could be a server. And that could be a physical server in a data center, a server in a closet in your office, or it could be a server running in a cloud like Amazon Web Services or Azure. The important thing that does not constitute an endpoint are things like mobile devices, so your iPads, your iPhones, and your Android devices. Those have a very different attack profile, a very different set of vulnerabilities, a much smaller set of vulnerabilities, and so are treated very differently from a cyber defense standpoint.
Got it. Thank you. So if you don't mind, let's go a little bit deeper into the two packaged programs here, CyberPro and the difference between CyberPro and CyberPlus.
Absolutely. So before we get into differences, I'll talk about what they have in common. And I mentioned this briefly. The number one thing that organizations need and often overlook is the 24/7 nature of security monitoring and response. So when we look at our cyber operations across our hundreds of clients, the vast majority of the work we do is after Friday evening and before Monday morning, because that's when adversaries know that there is not a 9-to-5 operation from an IT perspective there to solve problems. That's when they know they have the best chance of successfully infiltrating and attacking an organization. So both of our offerings focus on 24/7 monitoring within the environment. CyberPro focuses exclusively on the endpoints, and again, if that's all you have in your organization, that's probably enough for you. CyberPlus starts with that and then goes a bit further. So if you have a more complex environment, you'll often hear regulators and cyber defenders talk about something called a SIEM, or a security information and event management capability. This is really a single pane of glass that's able to pull in alerts and raw data from more than just endpoints, bring in the endpoint data, but also bring in the firewalls, the cloud application logs, the infrastructure and the SaaS login information. Pull that information together so that you can correlate and run analytics to detect if there's a compromise beyond just the endpoint. So CyberPlus provides a platform that Bluevoyant can use to deliver exactly that. Those analytics on top of that data, which we collect for you, process, and are then able to find indicators of compromise beyond just your endpoint. This also includes key features that regulators often look for that we believe, in addition to satisfying compliance and regulatory concerns, really help from an IT hygiene perspective. The more hygienic and standardized your IT operations are, the easier it is to defend and detect when something goes bad from a cyber adversary perspective. That's where you see vulnerability scanning. That's where you see an incident response template. So when you're able to say when something goes bad, having an incident response template allows you to very rapidly decide what needs to happen next to make sure the incident is contained so that you can move on and get back and resume consistent business operations in the event of a cyber incident. So from a CyberPlus perspective, all of those elements are included for organizations who have those levels of need.
Great. Thanks, Chris. So basically, we've designed different interfaces based upon the needs of a firm's particular business, their frequency of reporting, and depth of reporting, the reporting coverage they would need, and that's within the Cyber Pro and the Cyber Plus packages. So let's just get into the other services that we've partnered with Bluevoyant to provide. And if you don't mind going through each of these, Chris, that would be great.
No, absolutely. So in addition to the managed security service packages, Cyber Pro and Cyber Plus that we described, we also recognize that organizations have additional requirements that may need to be addressed on a more ad hoc or periodic basis, not necessarily a 24/7, always-on perspective. So for those organizations that are being asked by outside parties what they're doing to validate from a third-party perspective that they have good security in place, penetration testing is a very important capability. So having Bluevoyant come in and test your organization to see whether or not you can respond to an abrupt attack and resume business operations is a key capability. Additionally, many organizations see changes and aren't really given a roadmap for what that means in terms of defending themselves from cyber adversaries, to new regulations, new technologies that change the way you conduct business. That's where you may want cybersecurity consulting to come in. We have a number of capabilities here, most of which fall into what we would normally call a virtual CISO or Chief Information Security Officer. This is somebody with the expertise who can come in, diagnose what's changing in your environment from a regulation standpoint, from a technology standpoint, help you understand the cybersecurity implications and put a plan in place to start moving your organization in the direction to tackle those challenges and to remain secure while doing so. And the last piece is the incident response retainer. There is no world, unfortunately, these days in which it's a matter of if from a cybersecurity incident perspective. It's a matter of when. No matter how small the organization, ransomware will happen, account compromise will happen, whether it's business email compromise or data spillage, there will be an incident. And when that happens, having a pre-negotiated rate with an organization that has an SLA who will come in and begin to remediate at a predetermined rate any issue that may happen from a cybersecurity standpoint is key. Because what you don't want is to be in a situation where something happens and now you're calling friends and family desperately to find somebody who may be able to help you out with the situation while precious hours and days may be draining away, impacting your bottom line from a business perspective. An incident response retainer says within 24 or 48 hours, there will be somebody there to solve your problems or you will be made whole financially. And so that's where an incident response retainer comes in.
Great. Thanks, Chris. So I guess we'll wrap up here. We hope that this particular Foreside Partner Spotlight has helped our audience to understand not only the very real threat of cybersecurity and how advanced it's become over the past decade, but also to understand the specific packages and programs that Foreside partnered with Bluevoyant to develop to meet the investment advisor and broker-dealer community needs. If you'd like to learn more about the cybersecurity packages and programs, you can visit the website here. This is our landing page for the cybersecurity services. You can also go to foreside.com under Technology Solutions and click on Cybersecurity. Thank you, everyone.